Welcome to Mindful Conversations. I'm Greg Dwyer. My guest again is James Mapes. James is the author of this book, Imagine That. I am actually the owner of the first copy. I'm really happy about that. James is an actor. He does hypnosis, mentalism. Wonderful man, and I asked him to be back again today. James, thank you so much.
Great pleasure.
So how did...
We're wearing brother ties. You know
yes, we are. Yes. So how did you get your start in all of that you do? I know you're an actor, all that you do.
I think I grew up in the Midwest at a time conservative. To this day, our town has no movie shows. Zion, Illinois, no bars, no liquor. And I wanted to be, honest to God, a star.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to be. And so I was doing musical comedy when I was 15, 16. I was sold on acting in high school. It saved my sanity. That was...
Why? What was going on?
Well, because I was being bullied and I wouldn't play sports and I'm a big guy and there was a lot of stuff going on.
Sure.
I found a home.
Right.
Right. So my mom didn't want me to go to college and study acting, you know, for a lot of reasons.
Sure, sure.
So I entered college as a math major and a chemistry minor, and really got booted out of college for fighting, and I was miserable, miserable. My first year of college. So I was sequestered with my aunt in Peru, Illinois, and got my GPA up to a straight A, and then I wanted to go to California, and my mom took a lot of persuading. I went to Cal State University in Northridge and got my bachelor's and master's in theater. So in there, I really honed my skills as a designer, an actor too, but lighting designer, especially in tech theater, building sets. I was a master carpenter for 2 years. Oh. And that would serve me later, right? All these things served the next step. Then I graduated from college, and that's the horrible thing, right? Because you're in the safe womb. And a buddy of mine got me a job touring with Roger Williams, who was a wonderful pianist. And I was his tech director. And on that tour was a magician by the name of Bob Elgus. And Bob really solidified my interest in magic. I came off that tour, and Roger paid for my way to go to New York to become an actor as a gift. He said, I want you to go. I'm going to pay your plane fare. I know you don't have much. I'll put you up in a hotel until you get your first job.
That's amazing.
And I got my first job was with the New Jersey Shakespeare Festival, directing 1 production, acting in 3. And then I came to New York, re-auditioned, got a job, June Havoc in Repertory Theater in New Orleans. I lived there for a year and did a number of plays, and they had a hypnotist by the name of Sam Vine down there. Sam, you know, does the name ring a bell to you?
I know the name.
Yeah, he was a Las Vegas hypnotist, ship, and I thought it was garbage.
Oh, you did?
Oh, I did. It scared me half to death. I mean, and my girlfriend got hypnotized, and I didn't believe in it. And I'm from the Midwest.
Yeah, it's the devil. It's the devil's work,
Leviticus.
Right? Yeah. That's funny.
So I came from New Orleans to New York, and I got what saved my life is I started doing television commercials while I was auditioning for soap operas and film and stage, and so I had 5 commercials running at one time, including one as a magician, oddly enough. And I was doing stunt work, which I wasn't prepared for by any way. And then I decided I have to produce my own theater. I don't like being a victim of the acting profession.
Right.
So I took a job on a world cruise in 1973, producing, designing, and acting in 6 musical comedies. Wrote one of them.
That's amazing.
And on that cruise, I met a wealthy widow from Rio who came up to me at the bar after my musical review, and she said, what else are you doing in life? And I said, well, I'm producing this theater next summer. Have you raised your money? No, I didn't know what I was doing. She said, how much do you need? And I said, my mind's going, well, what do I say? You know, I don't know. I've got a budget.
Right.
And I said, $20,000. She opened her checkbook, wrote me a check for $20,000, which financed my first theater, and then the following year, my half of my next theater.
Did you marry her?
No.
No. I'm just teasing. But that's amazing. It
was incredible. And then one thing led to another. I was doing bit parts in soaps until later in life. I got really interested in magic and was producing my theaters, doing a blindfold drive in New Tripoli, Pennsylvania to get publicity.
What is a blindfold?
Blindfold drive
What is it?
Somebody comes up and puts a hood over your head and wraps it with tape, and I drive a car
Okay.
with a cop escort.
Wow.
It was got a lot of PR.
Wow.
So that was something. And then the following year, I opened a theater in Syracuse, the first theater up at Syracuse Stage, produced my second theater, and then I was bending keys on the Merv Griffin show. I started doing a lot of TV and doing hypnosis on the air, and that was life-changing for me.
Right.
And then I joined the Magic Castle. I auditioned for the Magic Castle in 1976, and that was a big deal to be a member.
Yep.
And then came back and started working in the Catskills with the help of a friend of mine, Gil Eagles. I was the only guy in the Catskills.
I just saw Gil last month in Vegas.
Oh, he's incredible.
He's a good friend of yours.
He's a good friend and the most generous man I know, because I didn't know how to get in the Catskills, so I.
What did you do? Tell us.
All right.
Tell us.
Gil knows this, so it's okay.
Okay.
I couldn't afford any publicity.
All right.
I couldn't afford anything.
Right.
And so I took his publicity and I cut out the letters.
Yeah.
And I said, this year, Gil Eagles, next summer, James Mapes, to the Catskills.
Wow.
And of course, Gil was loved, as Gil is.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
By every hotel, Brown's and Grossinger's and Kuchner. And so they all called him, said, who's this jerk?
Ah.
And he said, he's a good friend, hire him.
Yeah, that's nice.
And I was doing bungalow colonies for $125, and that started to pay for my first car.
Wow.
And then I started doing hypnosis shows. And then Gil said to me, you know, you ought to be in the college market.
Yeah, tell us about the college market.
College market was not only a life game changer financially, but I got a manager shortly after I decided to do colleges, who was a lifetime friend, 37 years was my manager. And Gil said, well, you come to this convention and you do a little hypnosis at the booth, do a little mentalism, do a little this. And I thought, you know, it's expensive, but I'll do it.
Sure.
Whatever happened, I took off from making $125 to thousands within one Campus Entertainer of the Year, the first one ever given in 1977. And I was doing, Gil and I were actually doing more colleges than really were healthy for us.
Right.
Until I walked through a plate glass window in 1982. I was just exhausted.
You were tired.
I was exhausted, doing 2 shows a day, 7 days a week. And then I decided I have to change my life a little bit. And that was what got me in with my manager in the corporate market, which again transformed, because I've seen the world 3 or 4 times. No hypnosis, no mentalism. I just created quantum leap thinking. And then I started doing an hour talk and went through the financial services, the hospitality services. It was magnificent. And then I started to, you know, about 10 years ago, I feel I'm getting stale. So about 10 years ago, I created a program for pre-surgery.
Yes, I have that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it came out because I was shooting a film in Scotland. I think I mentioned it last time, called The Wicker Tree, a thriller.
Yes, yes.
And a big part, probably the best role of my life, by the writer who did the, terrible moment here. But The Wicker Tree was what the film was. And I came home, high as a kite. I was so happy, 2 weeks over there shooting, and I got depressed.
No way.
For 3 days. Absolute depression. I said to my wife, I don't get depressed.
Right.
And I went to my doctor at 10 a.m. He sent me to my cardiologist at noon, and 2 minutes to 6 that night, I found out I had less than 2 weeks to live.
Oh, that's right.
I had an aortic aneurysm, and it burst on the table. So I decided, the fear was so great that I had to use it, you know, it took me about a week to figure this out. How can I help people who are going to go in surgery?
Right. Right.
So I started doing a research project. And 2 years later, I came out with a program that is called Patient Pre-Op Post-Op Healing Therapy. It has been incredible. Yale's backed it. It helps people get rid of all fear, which changes the brain chemistry before surgery. It moves blood flow away from the point of incision, because we can do that with our mind, and brings it back at the end of the surgery. It 40% less narcotics and 25% faster healing, all based on the imagination.
Well, I have
think.
heard that if someone is fearful and they're going to be operated the next day or they're going to go in for some kind of major work, that if they're afraid or in fear or they're just worried, that that actually impacts how they heal.
Well, there's two chemicals, adrenaline and cortisol.
Okay.
So you're not going to have those chemicals in your brain when you have surgery. And then I discovered something which you'll love, and we've talked about this in the past. I was in ICU, and I started questioning senior nurses. I could barely talk because a thing broke in my throat, and I asked the nurse, does attitude make a difference?
Mm-hmm.
And she stopped, and I remember this because my wife had her journalist papers. She was taking notes. She said, no one's ever asked that, but I will tell you, there have been many people that should never have had a problem, and they did. And those were always the people who treated us shabbily, never were grateful, fought with their family, or had no family. And there were people that should have had a lot bigger problems, and they didn't. And they were always the people who were loving, had gratitude, had a great support system, because without an advocate, you've got issues.
Right.
In this day and age especially, you have to have an advocate.
Well, what do you mean by an advocate? You mean friends and support?
Friends and support, but somebody to, when you go in for surgery and meet with a doctor, you are not going to hear everything.
Oh, you
and
need
when you're
somebody,
dismissed from the hospital or released, you are not going to hear everything that you should do.
Okay.
So you have to have, I had my wife.
That makes sense.
And I've been with her,
Yeah.
but you can have friends, you can have his brother, you can have a sister. So that changed my life again. And then I started doing talks on wellness. And then I'm getting back into stage hypnosis and mentalism and working on a screenplay.
So tell us about the future. You seem to be always inventing yourself. You're not sitting still. You're not letting the
Never.
grass grow underneath your
No,
feet. So
no.
where do you see yourself in the next 5, 10 years? What's it going to be?
If all goes as planned, which it never does, I will have made a movie
Okay.
called The Regression, based on my specialty in hypnosis is regression therapy, taking people back in their past. This is a thriller, and I've got 2/3 of it written. I will have a novel of the same name,
All right.
about 1/3 written, and I am working on a one-man show, totally different, as a mentalist.
Very
so
nice.
I would like all three things to feed each other. So this is my biggest challenge I've ever done. And sometimes my wife said, "Why? Well, you don't have to do this." I said, "What am I going to do? This is I am a performer. I'm a speaker. I love helping people, as you do. You and I love helping people.
So it's who you are.
Yeah, it's who I am, and the payoff is greater than the sacrifice."
Well, I met you at WestCon. It had to be the late 70s, early 80s when I was in high school. And then I didn't see you for years. And I went to college and seminary, divinity school. And then I guess it was 2015, 2016 that I saw you and we just connected and talked. And, you know, there is a connection. And I do appreciate our friendship.
Yes,
and,
me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
So I know in your show you do something, well, there's two things you do. One is with a pendulum, but the other one is something you do with the heartbeat. Can you talk about that? I love that. Is that tied together or it's two separate things?
Well, it is fun. And what I do is I have the audience feel their pulse.
So they feel their pulse
They
here
feel
or
their
here?
pulse or here, however
Okay.
they can feel it.
All right.
And I say, I want you to sound out your heartbeat.
So
In
they
other
tap
words,
it?
They tap it, or they do this. And of course, it's chaos.
Right, because you have thousands of people or hundreds of people, all
Right,
different
all in
beats.
different rhythms. I say, I'm going to link us together right now. Close your eyes. Oh, you don't have to close your eyes.
Yeah.
No. But close your eyes.
Okay.
I take them through a 60-second relaxation, and I open it. Say, picture the person you love or a pet that you love, and take a big breath. Open your eyes and feel your pulse.
Okay.
And listen. And I said, I'm going to sound mine out. Right. So I'm feeling my pulse, and we're all linked up. So you've got hundreds of people out there. One sound, one sound, one sound.
So number one, how does that work?
I don't know.
Okay. And number two, the metaphor to me speaks loud of who you hang around with.
Absolutely.
You know, you're around toxic people, negative people.
Or relations. And I've heard people say this to me, and I do a lot of coaching for this. How do I leave my husband?
How do I leave my husband?
Yeah. Or how do I leave my wife? Or how do I get out from relatives who are toxic? And I say, wait a minute. How is for your job to figure out, is it worth being around toxic people? Is it worth, because I'm very aware of the finiteness of life.
Right.
I don't want to feel a certain way. First of all, you got to know how you feel, and you got to know how you feel lovingly, right? So you go, which one am I going to choose here? You work it out. You know, sometimes it's painful to cut people loose.
It is.
And I had to fire one of my best friends.
He worked with you?
About 20 years ago. It was more of a betrayal, but it hurt. It hurt so bad it couldn't be resolved. And I just had to, you know, and it broke my heart.
Right.
I wrote him a letter forgiving him, and that was it.
Well, I find that as a person develops and grows, you leave people behind. You just do. You know? I lead trips all over the world, and you're there. You mentioned something about life being finite, but when you're on a trip, like we're leaving for Israel next week, you're on a trip. There's shopping, there's relaxation, there's doing certain things that you want to do, but you know that you're leaving in 3-4 days. You know, so everyone has different values of what they want to do, and the same thing with life. I mean, we don't have forever. Why did you say that life is finite? Why? Because that triggered something in me.
Well, for me, it is, if not now, when?
If not now, when?
That's the question. I do this with myself a lot when I get in fear.
When you're fear.
I get in fear.
Sure, we all
I just know how to get out of it.
How do you get out of it?
Well, how do you get out of it is by asking the right questions.
Wonderful.
Do I want to feel this way? It's my choice.
You're feeling
People
it.
don't think that it's a choice.
It
is a choice.
Okay.
And what can I do? You know, it's interesting. I do a lot of stuff on values, and I hope this will resonate with your audience. So if you were to list your top 5 values, whatever they are, just think of them in your mind. And you can do the rest of this when the program's over. And I do this with clients. And so I list the top 5 values, and I ask them if for eternity you could only keep this or this or that.
All right.
So they're numbered in a priority of 1 to 5, your top most important value. There's a couple reasons for this. Number 1, if you know your top 2 values, you can work those into your goal planning. You don't ever want to go against those top 2 values.
Makes sense.
My top 3 values, number 1 is love.
Mine is love.
And when people hear the word, it isn't what most people think. It's a way of seeing. It's putting on the lens to look through.
Right.
So you forgive people. It doesn't mean I don't get angry. Somebody cuts me off, I bark at them.
Sure.
So number 1 is love. Number 2 is freedom.
I love freedom too.
Freedom means not having somebody following me around telling me what to do. I love freedom. Now, I've created a life that I can have freedom. And number 3 is fun.
Wow.
All right. Now, my wife knows those 3 values. We're identical. And here's why it's important. She'll come in and I'm a little blue. And she goes, "Are you okay?" Yeah, but when you're in something negative, you're in it. It's like you lost your fun glasses or something.
Yeah.
And so she said, number 1 value. She said, "You know you're loved, right?" I mean, really loved. I said,
wonderful.
I know, I am. Thank you. I love you too. 2, you've got all the freedom. You know you can go camping, you can go here, you can do what you want to do.
You just came back from Cuba.
Yeah, we just came back from Cuba.
Yeah, wonderful life.
Wonderful, yeah. A lot of magicians. And 3, are you having enough fun? And this happens all the time to me. I go, "Oh." She goes, "Oh, let's go for a walk.
Or
let's go to a
city.
movie.
Yeah.
Let's do something."
Yeah.
And boom, I have Midwestern guilt. And my mind never, my assistant says, "You never stop."
Right.
Never. Even when you dream, you're plotting, planning, and scheming.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah.
And it's a good thing.
I think so.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I'm a little, I'm taking it a little easier, a little more time in the gym now. I've been working out since 1972, so I just have to get back. And I'm going. I was there yesterday.
Well, now I know why we're connected, because love is my number 1, and freedom is right there at the top for me as well. And the value clarification, I think, is really important.
It is, because you work, if you don't know, you say, most people that are unhappy are searching for something, right? Does that make sense?
They're looking for
something. They're looking more, whatever this is.
Yeah, sure.
Well, if your goals, your direction, isn't congruent with your values, you'll never be happy.
Exactly.
Or you'll never be content.
Right.
And content, I don't, there's so many words. Peaceful. So it's like this. So when I coach people, I get them to create their goals in alignment with their future vision.
Right.
In alignment with their values. So by doing that, it gives you more energy. You're not defeating yourself, and you don't feel sad, or you don't feel, is that all there is?
Right, right. A lot of times people get to a place they want to be and they're not fulfilled. That's another problem.
I don't know what that looks like. So.
Oh, really? So what do you mean by that? You're always fulfilled, or what?
No, what I mean is, I look at goal setting as juggling 5 or 6 balls, right?
Right.
That gives you a lot of action.
And variety.
And if you drop a ball,
right,
fine, you still got 5 more or 4 more.
Sure.
So I'm always doing something, or digging, as I am this moment in my life, is what's my next big plan, and how is it going to give me juice?
Right, right. And help other people.
And always help other people. That goes without saying.
Right. So you're into contribution.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I'm not a saint. I don't want to be made a saint. I'm selfish.
What do you mean?
Well, I think altruistic selfishism is wonderful. That means that I do what makes me feel good. And what makes me feel good is helping people.
Yeah, have you read Ayn Rand?
Yeah.
Is that her name? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, what was the book? Atlas?
Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah, I haven't read it. I mean, it's very thick, but the philosophy is if you live in a selfish way, you will actually help other people. Is that the idea? Is that the philosophy?
Yeah, it's. I don't look at it as quite that selfish, because because there are times I do things that I don't want to do to help somebody.
Okay.
I really don't want to drive somebody for 3 hours somewhere, but I do it because so that alignment with values is very important. That all this comes back to the imagination.
Yes.
That's why I wrote the books.
Yes.
How do you imagine yourself? I cover everything possible of how to reframe negative thoughts. How can you instantly reframe? How can you ask yourself the questions? What is forgiveness? How do you learn it? Why bother? Every single thing is based on brain science.
It is.
Everything that I write about, say, all right, here's a case study of what happens when you forgive. Here's how it changes the brain. Here's a case study of why it is more important to visualize success. Why is it important to visualize yourself already having succeeded? Why is that? You must.
Right, you must.
You see yourself on the way to healing with the patient program. You see yourself stepping on a scale with 20 pounds off. It is almost impossible, to achieve without first experiencing the success in your mind.
I remember Drew Carey talking about going on The Tonight Show, and he would sit there day after day, week after week, just imagining the curtain, imagining Johnny sitting over there, and he ran it through his mind over and over and over, and then one day it became a reality.
That's what happened when my first acting job, my first big film acting job, is rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearse for success.
Right.
And it makes a difference. We can go on to this forever.
Well, let me give you a plug. I am happy to say that I have the first book. The name of the title is Imagine That by James Mapes. His website is simple. It's his name, jamesmapes.com. He can coach you. He can put you under a spell. He can break the spell that you're under. He does public speaking. He's a wonderful person. Imagine That is a wonderful book. So if you want to learn more about this, and James has so much information here, there's links here, right? I mean, there's links to computer...
28 video links that you can go on. And everything is in the book. It's self-contained. You never have to go to a link.
Okay.
But if you want me to coach you on life priorities, here's 6 minutes.
Wow.
Or here's 5 minutes on how to reframe your thinking from negative to positive.
Right.
There's 2 hypnosis demonstrations in there at Lincoln Center that are metaphors for how I think and how I teach.
And who are your clients? Who are the people that come to you?
Clients, well, I've got different sets. There's wellness. Okay, so that's one set of clients. There are senior executives, CEOs, and business people looking for coaching success. And then there are relationship issues. that always have to do with the person's choices that are made.
Right.
So my job is to kick people out of patterns of thinking.
Wonderful.
And to give them, how do you retrain your brain?
Right. It's wonderful. And mindful conversations and what I do with the magic of communications, it's actually been influenced by this and NLP and hypnosis. One of the things that you do in your lectures, you have the pentagram, and you have people, is it pentagram or is it
pendulum?
Pendulum. What am I thinking? And you have people give a string and a washer.
They get a little packet with a string and a washer.
Talk a little bit about this, because
this is fun. And the reason I do this in all my lectures, just whether it's library or corporate or a show, is that everyone has a success with this, and it shows the power of your imagination. So if you are able to do this, or maybe you'll be able to pause this if you didn't see the last time I was on to set this up, go get a little piece of kite string and tie a ring on it. So you've got a makeshift pendulum. And then imagine, now if you imagine there's a circle, say there's a piece of paper. Now I usually hand this out to the audience. A piece of paper with a circle on it, which you can draw, and then like a sight of a looking through a gun, there's a line, crosshairs. So you as you're looking down, there's a line going up and down, vertical and horizontal, and a circle. So we'll do this so you can imagine. Now move your elbow up off the table. The first thing is just to visualize this going left and right, like it's going right across. There you go. Is that fun?
Right? That's scary. Yes,
it's weird for people.
It is.
All right?
It is.
So imagine it going left and right. Keep it going. And then switch it to a circle. Just imagine it going in a circle.
I think it is. It is going in a circle.
Focus. Good. Now, take your opposite hand and hold that wrist.
Oh, this wrist?
Yeah, hold that wrist.
Okay.
Now, imagine it going in a circle again and still going to go in a circle. Make the circle bigger, bigger.
Are you kidding me?
Bigger, bigger, bigger. Isn't that wonderful?
It is. The first time I saw you do this, everyone in the audience had a string.
They were freaking out.
Yeah, between this and the heartbeat, So how is this like a metaphor for life? You're saying that if I think a certain thought, it's going to affect the way I...
Well, it already is.
It is, right?
It is, right there. You can see it affect the thought.
So I have a thought, there's an action.
If we blew you up on a big screen, you're going like this. Or you're going left and right.
I'm doing it.
You're doing it.
Oh, okay.
You're doing it. And this is, if anyone has ever played golf, just think about this for a second. You're on the green and you're thinking, I don't want to go in the sand trap. I don't want to go in the sand trap. Boom, sand trap. How did that happen? Well, how does this happen?
That's amazing.
And then in communication, which you're big, I love this. A novice salesperson who has never sold anything has studied extensively how to sell.
Right.
But that individual is afraid of rejection, right? Driven by the fear of rejection.
Right.
Goes up to the first client and goes, you wouldn't want to buy my product, would you? And we do this all, you wouldn't want to go out with me, would you?
Right.
We do this all the time to ourselves. That's why you visualize success in advance.
Right.
So you swing the right direction, because communication, as you know, we've talked about this, and maybe a little different for you, it's only 6-7% words.
Right.
Right? That's it. That's the words. Think about that. That's all. Communication is only 6. Then there's 37% of how the words are said.
Exactly.
It takes a little time to talk about it, but some people are auditory, visual, kinesthetic, or a combination. But the majority is what?
Is body language and
body
thoughts.
language.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So we're communicating all the time.
All the time, even by not communicating.
Right.
We're communicating.
And we're communicating to ourselves and other people. We walk in the room, it's there.
And the thought I'd like to, for your listeners, is your self-talk is a self-programming system as to how you communicate. And once you learn how to control this, and you can do it. I've got a system that is fail-safe, and that is, you then can start to switch your thoughts to positive, and you're going to portray in a positive way.
James, thank you so much for this wisdom. I love you. And thank you so much for being on the show. We'll be back next time.